dollar, gold, because that's where money pretty much begins in our modern history, and then the emergence of the U.S. dollar, and then how we got to the point to where we are now, where basically, I'll just give you this initial disclaimer: our dollar is in a lot of trouble. Not only our dollar, but all of the world fiat currencies. And so the reason why I'm putting this on is because there was a if anybody are in any trading circles on this call, there was a recent event called the Bitcoin halving, and a lot of people who were my clients, who I'm training, I prepared them to be able to capitalize off of that halving. But that's just one particular peak event. And as you're going to see, I'm going to teach you in the class, Bitcoin holds a pattern that after every halving, a year or so later, um, the price of Bitcoin is always skyrocketed. And so now, at this particular junction in history, it's the circumstances are a bit different. And the reason why is we've got COVID-19, and the Fed again is printing money like crazy. And so, all of those factors were not present at in the first two halvings. And so, as you'll see, as I go through the class, yeah, we're at a very interesting and exciting and also terrifying time in our history. And I wanted to put this class together so that everybody that I know, everybody that I'm connected to, can prepare themselves for what I'm pretty darn certain is about to come. I don't know exactly when, but yeah, money as we know it will completely change. So okay, so it looks like everybody that's um, we've got enough people, so we're going to go ahead and go on. Like I said, if anybody is coming on late, this will be recorded. Everybody who's paid, you will have complete access to the recording, as well as it'll be reproduced. So let's get started. Okay. Okay. Give me just a second. I'll get rid of them. Give me just a second. Let me set myself up technically for our recording. All right, let's go. So again, thank you all for attending. This is Cryptocurrency 101 via Making Market Moves, which is my financial education company. And basically, our mission is to teach people how to trade and invest in both the stock and the stock, cryptocurrency, and soon coming real estate markets as well too. So this is our first online course. I'm very excited to be sharing this information, and I thought that this one was of the utmost importance because of what is going on in our global economic landscape. So I present to you Cryptocurrency 101. Let's dig right into it. Okay, so we're going to begin this course by giving us a very thorough background of history, okay? Um, Money, the concept of money is a relatively uh, old invention in modern history. And when I say modern history, I'm talking about going back to um, as early as 600 BC. Um, the very first use of money was gold. Okay. Throughout modern history, gold has been the currency of choice. Silver as well too, but gold is the highest standard. Um, Societies have evolved a standardization of minting coins based solely on the value of the metal within. So basically, the value of gold itself. Not only has it been used for a currency, but gold also does have practical uses, which is why I believe that it was the first, both gold and silver. Um, so talk about. Let's go back here and talk about. Um, since 600 BC, okay, there have been fluctuations in the value of gold, okay? Um, this goes as far back as, 1492 when Columbus sailed the ocean blue. When those settlers came over to the New World, they were in search of, and the reason why they colonized the Americas and the manner that they did, because this part of the world is very rich in gold, as well as um, other parts of the world like Africa and the Middle East. Okay, so um, that happened, and then once they were settled here in 1848, a lot of us have heard of the California Gold Rush, right? Where they discovered lots of gold in California and other parts of the West Coast. Okay, and because a lot of people were attracted to coming to that part of the country, digging for gold, um, it resulted in inflation, basically where the value of gold went down because the supply increased, because a lot of new gold flooded the markets. Okay, so then at that time, the dollar, because of this new abundance of gold, our United States dollar was put on what you call a gold standard, which basically all of the paper money that was printed had an equal amount of gold that was tied to it. Okay. Um, now, now we fast forward in history to the stock market crash of 1929. Okay, and as the price of gold rose, dollars were exchanged for gold. So more people started hoarding gold as a store of value rather than the paper money. Because what happened then is, again, as you'll see further on in the class, is happening now. Whereas the federal government um, and the Federal Reserve Bank um, basically were just greedy and continued to find ways to print and to extract money to make themselves wealthy. Well, they did so up until the point to where they crashed the entire market. And we all know, have heard of some version of the story of the Great Depression. When that happens, people shied away from the dollar and wanted actual gold bullion. Okay, and I'm going to jump ahead of myself. Okay, for those of you all who are traders and investors in the stock market, the same thing happens now. If you go back and look at when the stock market crashed back in March and look at the price of gold and what has happened since then, investors run to safety in gold. Okay, and like I said, they did that because historically, not only the United States, but the rest of the fiat. And when I say fiat, I'm saying those are currencies that are controlled by a central authority in national governments. Okay. Um, Now, how do we become a world power? Okay. Monetarily, we became a world power because we held the majority of the gold reserves in the world. We conquered and conquered and conquered and conquered until um, we took, a an obscene amount of gold. Okay. Um, and so because of that, we had a shift. Instead of currencies, all of the fiat, all of the centralized, all of the government's currencies started to peg their value to the US dollar instead of pegging it to gold. Okay. So at that particular juncture in history, um, our currencies were our currency became what people what all the money in the world was backed on rather than a gold standard. Okay. And so our currency up until 1971 did have a gold standard, but this guy, Richard Nixon, the president of the United States, removed us from that standard. And here's a short video in his own words to tell you all, give you a bit more background about why that happened.
I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States. In full cooperation with the International Monetary Fund and those who trade with us, we will press for the necessary reforms to set up an urgently needed new international monetary system. Stability and equal treatment is in everybody's best interest. I am determined that the American dollar must never again be a hostage in the hands of international speculators. I'm taking one further step to protect the dollar, to improve our balance of payments, and to increase jobs for Americans. As a temporary measure, I am today imposing an additional tax of 10% on goods imported into the United States. This is a better solution for international trade than direct controls on the amount of imports. This import tax is a temporary action. It isn't directed against any other country. It's an action to make certain that American products will not be at a disadvantage because of unfair exchange rates. When the unfair treatment is ended, the import tax will end as well.
Okay. So again, Richard Nixon took us off the gold standard. When that happened, in very simple terms, basically, our currency, the United States dollar, was no longer held that equal value of gold in the Federal Reserve Bank. Okay. Also remember that this was around the time of the Vietnam War. Okay, and this was the beginning of the upswing in what we call American imperialism. Okay, so with that being said, our currency shifted from being backed by gold to being backed by our ability of our military to go into other people's countries and steal their natural resources. Okay. One of the most prominent examples of this, and one of the things that have propped the value of our dollar for so long, is this concept of the petrodollar. Okay. By petro, we mean petroleum, oil. And if you all recall, after the Vietnam War, where did we go? We went into Iraq twice. We've been meddling with Iran, Kuwait, everywhere in the Middle East. We've even had conflicts with Venezuela. We've had conflicts also, even before the 70s, but after with Russia. What do all those countries have in common? they have large oil reserves or control of oil reserves. Okay, so this is the reason that we have been at war with the Middle East since the 80s, because that is what our dollar is tied to, our ability to bully other countries and steal their natural resources. Okay. And also, we basically got into bed with Saudi Arabia and made a deal with them because they have the world's largest oil reserves. Okay. So we made a deal with them to basically have, in a nutshell, cooperative economic relations. And in exchange, we would buy all their oil. And the Saudis today are some of the richest people on the planet because of that relationship. Okay. Um, because of our warfare and because of our petrodollar, the United States enjoyed persistent trade deficits in the global economic hegemony. And basically, what a global economic hegemony means, we were the bullies of the world. Okay. Um, what the petrodollar does is it provided the U.S. financial markets with the source of liquidity. Okay. By liquidity, we mean paper money, okay? Or money that you can easily put into cash. And foreign capital inflows through petrodollar recycling. And again, I want to reemphasize so that we all can truly understand what our money is backed upon. It's not backed upon gold. It's only backed upon our ability to go into other people's countries and steal their natural resources. If we are students of history and we look at the Roman Empire, we know that only lasts so long.